Let's all welcome Susan Coramel and the cast of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern again.
Thank you, Joel, for that wonderful introduction. And I just wanted to introduce my cast here before I launch into what I have to say about the play. So I think they have mics at work, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Taylor Jacobs, all right. Oh, I'm the player.
I'm Will Forkin, and I'm playing Guildenstern.
And I'm hello.
Hear you?
It's
Yep.
good. Okay. And I'm Max Romper, and I'm playing Rosencrantz.
So I, because as you might have thought, I am an actor, and so therefore I really always rely on my script. So I wrote a script for today. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. How many people have seen the play? Oh, great. It's been around since 1966. So it has had a film made of it in the 90s. It was written by Tom Stoppard, a British playwright, and it has something to do primarily with existentialism, and it uses a theater form that we call meta theater, which is basically sharpening our awareness of the unlikeliness of life to dramatic art. And meta theater may end by making us aware of life's uncanny likenesses to art or illusion, and it may break the frame of the fourth wall of the conventional theater, reaching out to assault the audience or to draw it into the realm of the play. It may, by devices like plays within plays, self-consciously theatrical characters, and commentary on theater itself. It dwells in the boundaries between illusion, artifice, and reality, making us speculate on the complex mixture of illusion and reality in our ordinary experience. And as you hear the selection from the guys over here later, you'll see how the idea of meta theater plays into this play almost on every page. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is the title. And so we already know what happens to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Oh my gosh, spoiler alert. No. Tom Stoppard is a playwright with diverse interests, but he's primarily and consistently concerned with human understandings of reality. What is reality? How do different people interpret and understand reality? And are there multiple realities? And if so, can they happily coexist? Which brought me to, these guys have heard this before, but it brought me to, as I'm reading the play and thinking about the play and what's important about the play and what story we want to tell about the play, my research brought me to this study, and you guys probably have heard of this too, but I had not. Schrodinger's cat. Got some nods, yeah. So just here's the quick and fast and dirty of that. Schrodinger's cat analogy was created by Erwin Schrödinger to disprove the interpretation, without going into too much detail, that a cat is sealed within a metal box for an hour with poison, a Geiger counter, radioactive material, and a hammer. And Schrödinger's theory is that the cat cannot be determined alive or dead until the box is opened. The superposition principle would say that the cat is both alive and dead simultaneously as long as no one opens the box. Schrödinger thought this was ridiculous, as the cat could only be in one state or the other, and thus the superposition principle cannot apply. Do we live in multiple states, in multiple universes at the same time without knowing? Are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern both alive and dead? So what we can take away from this quantum theory, other than it's incredibly confusing, is that we live in a world of probability. Our reality is random, and particles are potentially in multiple states and locations until they are measured. Nothing can be predicted. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is a play within a play about another play. In the play, Hamlet, there are two supporting characters, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And in 1966, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern got their own play, a spin-off of Hamlet, which is the play we're producing. It tells the story of Hamlet through the eyes of these two everymen who just get caught up in the whole thing and have blackly comic results. The play is a great examination also of Hume's theory of free will. So if we know the universe runs by cause and effect, and things happen because they were caused to happen, the leaf falls from the tree because the sap receded and the wind blew and the link between the leaf and the tree weakened, then the leaf had to fall. There was no way it could have happened that the leaf could just stay where it was. So we say prior causes necessitate later effects. A few people have wondered throughout history if human brains might work like this, operate the same way. Ordinarily, we think that we have choice in how we act and that we could do other than we actually do. But if prior causes necessitate later effects, then everything in the universe, including us, must be determined. So you act a certain way because your brain is in a particular state, and it's in that particular state because it was in this state previously, and it was in this state previously, and the state previously, and so on, and with no room for deviation. And if this is true, then we have no free will. And if it's not true, then some of our actions are not determined, which is to say random, and that is also not in our control. And so we still don't have any free will. And this is called the dilemma of determinism. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come against this problem. What they almost begin to realize as the play progresses is that they are stuck in a play. They are characters in a story being written by someone else with no control over what happens to them. And it is strongly hinted, and of course known by the audience or by anyone who knows Hamlet, that the play will end with their deaths. But they react to this dilemma in interesting ways. Rosencrantz gets quite upset, always asking questions and worrying about their situation. He says, "We've got nothing to go on. We're out on our own. What are we going to say? Out we come, bloodied and squalling, with the knowledge that for all the compasses in the world, there is only one direction." Rosencrantz can be seen as representing a pretty logical and understandable reaction to the dilemma of determinism. Oh my God, I don't have any free will. What am I going to do about it? But Guildenstern can be seen as embodying something like David Hume's response to the problem. Hume outlined a theory now called compatibilism. He said free will doesn't mean being able to do other than what you actually do. It just means doing what you want to do. If you want to eat a slice of cake and you do, then you are exercising your free will, even if it was always determined that you would eat that cake. And the universe necessitated that action. Free will just means no one forced you to do it. So maybe you can do other than what you actually do, but Hume says it's fine, and most of the time Guildenstern takes that approach. Guildenstern says, "There's a logic at work. It's all done for you. Don't worry, enjoy, relax. To be taken in hand and led is like being given a prize, an extra slice of childhood." "I'm very fond of boats," he says. "I like the way they're contained. You don't have to worry about which way to go or whether to go at all. The question doesn't arise." And in fact, they do what they want to do. At the end of the play, they discover the king's plot to kill Hamlet, and they decide not to tell Hamlet about it. So, does the play embody David Hume's answer to determinism? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is more of a critique of it, I think. You might be thinking that Hume's compatibilism is all well and good, but it doesn't actually solve the initial problem, which is that we might not be able to do other than what we do, and that's kind of scary. And at the end of the play, the decision that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern make to comply with the conspiracy to kill Hamlet is the decision that leads to their death. I was going to say spoiler alert, but I've already said that. So you see, it turns out that Hamlet suspected the conspiracy and swapped the letter that they were carrying for a fake, and so that when they delivered it, they got the chop and not him. And if they had decided to say something, if they had said, "Look, Hamlet, we know what's going on here. We're just two idiots, but your uncle is trying to kill you, and we're not cool with that," then who knows what might have happened. But of course they couldn't do that. They have no free will. And the play ends tragically with them being executed. And it is hinted, destined to be brought back again and again and again and again, only to be killed as part of the play. The fact that the play doesn't end happily for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern constitutes a critique on compatibilism. Yes, they were able to do what they wanted to do. They were able to do what they wanted to do, but they are not free. They are still trapped. They still die. And Guildenstern's attempts to be at peace with determinism don't get him out of it. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead is a play within a play about another play, and from the first moment of the play, with the improbable nature of the coin toss, every time, knowing it will be heads, the audience knows that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern will die, and not just in this play, but also in Hamlet. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are stuck in a cycle where they will live through the play and then die until the next performance begins. And it's funny, too. It's funny. So when we were discussing the play with my designers, Chris Harris and Bobby Brewer-Wallen and Rachel Steck, we talked about placing it in the round. And part of that idea of being in the round, meaning audience on all sides, all four sides. And with the center disc being something that tilts when their weight is placed on it. And this was really cool to us in May. But for a number of reasons, including infrastructure, we were not able to make the tilting stage, which I have to tell you, in 2.5 weeks before we open, I'm thankful for, because I can just imagine what that would be, getting on the, a week before we open. Oh my God, this thing is moving. What do we do? So it's not moving anymore, but it's still in the round. And so part of that idea is that the audience is on all sides, and they don't know how they got in. They don't know how to get out. There is no logic to how audiences, or to how the characters of Hamlet enter and exit the stage. There's no logic to it. You see them come through one exit and then they come in the next exit. So the audience never understands what the world outside the stage space might look like. And the play is set in Elizabethan England. We decided to embrace the Hamlet element of it. And so we have the two characters from Hamlet who don't know they're in Hamlet. And then we have the players, which Taylor plays the leading player of the troupe, who interact with them and pretty much through their performances reveal to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern the end of the play. So that's what we've been playing with for the last 2 weeks. We're going to have two scenes. Guys are going to read two scenes. One is the very first scene of the play to sort of set up Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It takes place as Tom Stoppard describes, it takes place in a placelessness. So there's no scenery. There's a deck of wood. So we know it's organic material, but we don't, and their clothing is Elizabethan. That's all we know. And the lights are up, and they begin that scene. We'll hear that now.
Heads. 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 Heads.
There is an art to the building up of suspension.
Heads.
Though it can be done by luck alone,
Heads.
if that's the word I'm after.
76. Love. Heads.
A weaker man might be moved to re-examine his faith, if in nothing else, at least in the law of probability.
Heads.
The law of averages, if I have got this right, means that if 6 monkeys were thrown up in the air for long enough, they would land on their tails about as often as they would land on their
Heads.
Which does not strike one as a particularly rewarding speculation in either sense, even without the monkeys. I mean, you wouldn't bet on it. I mean, I would, but you wouldn't.
Heads.
Would you?
Heads. Heads. Getting a bit of a bore, isn't it?
A bore?
Well,
What about the suspense?
what's suspense?
It must be the law of diminishing returns. I feel the spell about to be broken. Well, it was an even chance, if my calculations are correct.
85 in a row. Beating the record.
Don't be absurd.
Easily.
Is that it, then? Is that all?
What?
A new record. Is that as far as you were prepared to go?
Well,
No questions, not even a pause.
it'll take some beating, I imagine.
Is that what you imagine? Is that it? No fear.
Fear?
Fear.
Heads. I'm afraid...
So am I.
I'm afraid it isn't your day.
I'm afraid it is.
89.
Must be indicative of something besides the redistribution of wealth. List of possible explanations. 1. I'm willing it. Inside, where nothing shows, I am the essence of a man spinning double-headed coins and betting against himself in private atonement for an unremembered past.
Heads.
2. Time is stopped dead, and the single experience of one coin being spun once has been repeated 90 times. On the whole, doubtful. 3. Divine intervention, that is to say, a good turn from above. 4. A spectacular vindication of the principle that each individual coin spun individually is as likely to come down heads as tails.
Heads. I've never known anything like it.
He's never known anything like it. Therefore, he has never known anything to write home about. It is nothing to write home about. Home. What's the first thing you remember?
Oh. Let's see. The first thing that comes into my head, you mean?
No, the first thing you remember.
Ah. No. It's no good. It's gone. It was a long time ago.
You don't get my meaning. What's the first thing after all of the things you've forgotten?
Oh, I see. I've forgotten the question.
Are you happy?
What?
Content? At ease?
I suppose so.
What are you going to do now?
I don't know. What do you want to do?
I have no desires, none. There was a messenger. That's right. We were sent for. Syllogism. 1. The law of probability is a factor which operates within natural forces. 2. Probability is not operating as a factor. 3. We are now within unsub or supernatural forces. Discuss. Not too heatedly.
I'm sorry, What's the matter with you?
Scientific approach to the examination of phenomena is a defense against the pure emotion of fear. If we postulate that within unsub or supernatural forces, the probability is that the law of probability will not operate as a factor, then we must accept that the probability of the first part will not operate as a factor, in which case the law of probability will operate as a factor within unsub or supernatural forces. And since it obviously hasn't been doing so, we can take it that we are not held within unsub or supernatural forces after all, in all probability, that is, which is a great relief to me personally. Which is all very well, except that there was a message. We were sent for. Nothing else happened. 92 coins spun consecutively have come up heads 92 consecutive times. And for the last 3 minutes on the wind of a windless day, I have heard the sounds of drums and a flute.
Another curious scientific phenomenon is the fact that the fingernails grow after death, as does the beard.
What?
Beard!
But you're not dead.
I didn't say they started to grow after death. The fingernails also grow before birth, though not the beard.
What?
Beard! What's the matter with you? The toenails, on the other hand, never grow at all.
The toenails, on the other hand, never grow at all?
Do they? It's a funny thing. I cut my fingernails all the time, and every time I think to cut them, they need cutting. Now, for instance. And yet, I never, to the best of my knowledge, cut my toenails. They ought to be curled under my feet by now, but it doesn't happen. I never think about them. Perhaps I cut them absent-mindedly when I'm thinking of something else.
Do you remember the first thing that happened today?
I woke up, I suppose. Oh, I've got it now. That man, a foreigner, he woke us up.
A messenger.
That's it. Pale sky before dawn, a man standing on his saddle to bang on the shutters, shouts, "What's all the row about? Clear off." But then he called our names. You remember that? This man woke us up.
Yes.
We were sent for.
Yes.
That's why we're here. Traveling.
Oh, practically starting from scratch. An awakening. A man standing on his saddle to bang on the shutters. Our names shouted in a certain dawn. A message, a summons. A new record for heads and tails. We have not been picked out simply to be abandoned, set loose to find our own way. We are entitled to some direction, I would have thought.
I say,
Yes?
I can hear. I thought I heard music,
Yes?
like a band. It sounded like a band. Drums.
Yes!
It couldn't have been real. I knew all along it was a band.
You knew all along it was a band.
Here they come.
And who comes is Taylor's character with his band. But we're going to skip to their next encounter with the player.
Brilliantly recreated. If these eyes could weep. Rather strong on metaphor, mind you. No criticism. It's just a matter of taste. So, here you are. With a vengeance. Oh, that's a figure of speech, isn't it? Well, let's say we've made it up to you. For you may have no doubt whom to thank for your performance at the court.
We already have an entrance here, and always have had.
You've played for him before?
Yes, sir.
What will you play?
The Murder of Gonzago,
Oh, full of fine cadence and corpses.
pirated from the Italian.
What is it about?
It's about a king and queen.
Escapism. What else?
Blood?
Love and rhetoric.
Yes.
Where are you going?
I can come and go as I please.
You're evidently a man who knows his way around.
I've been here before.
We're still finding our feet.
I should concentrate on not losing your heads.
Do you speak from knowledge?
Precedent.
You've been here before.
I know which way the wind is blowing.
The truth is, we value your company for want of any other. We have been left so much to our own devices. After a while, one welcomes the uncertainty of being left to other people's.
Uncertainty is the normal state. You're nobody special.
But for God's sake, what are we supposed to do?
Relax. Respond. That's what people do. You can't go through life questioning your situation at every turn.
But we don't know what's going on, or what to do with ourselves. We don't know how to act.
Act natural. You know why you're here at least.
We only know what we're told, and that's little enough. And for all we know, that isn't even true.
For all anyone knows, nothing is. Everything has to be taken on trust. Truth is only that which is taken to be true. It's the currency of living. There may be nothing behind it, but it doesn't make any difference so long as it is honored. One acts on assumptions. What do you assume?
Hamlet is not himself, outside or in. We have to glean what afflicts him.
He's melancholy.
Melancholy.
Mad.
How is he mad?
Ah! How is he mad?
More morose than mad, perhaps.
Melancholy.
Moody.
He has moods.
Of moroseness.
Madness. And yet,
Quite.
for instance,
He talks to himself, which may be a kind of madness.
if he didn't talk sense, which he does.
Which suggests the opposite.
Of what?
Oh, I think I have it. A man talking sense to himself is no madder than a man talking nonsense to not himself.
Or just as mad.
Oh, or just as mad.
And he does both.
So there you are.
Stark raving sane.
Why?
Ah. Why?
Exactly.
Exactly what?
Exactly why?
Exactly why what?
What?
Why?
Why what exactly?
Why is he mad?
I don't know.
The old man thinks he's in love with his daughter.
Good God, we're out of our depth here.
No. He hasn't got a daughter. The old man thinks he's in love with his daughter.
The old man is?
Hamlet, in love with the old man's daughter, the old man thinks.
Ah, it's beginning to make sense. Unrequited passion.
Nobody leaves this room without a very good reason.
Why not?
All this strolling about is getting too arbitrary by half. I'm rapidly losing my grip. From now on, reason will prevail.
I have lines to learn.
Pass.
So I guess we could move on to a Q&A about the play or these wonderful actors or anything. Tom Stoppard, I don't know, whatever you'd like. I think we'll give those mics out to the group and you guys can answer here.
My name is Sally, and I was wondering if there are any women in the play.
Well, it's a very good question. It's quite unusual, actually, for Willamette Theater. There are two women in the play, Ophelia and Gertrude, from Hamlet. And this play has 13 actors in it, and only 2 of them are women, which never happens at Willamette. I mean, everything is always, because we choose plays that have a lot of women characters in them because we have a lot of women actors. But when we made the decision to do this play, it was because we had a lot of guys. And so we thought, well, they're people too. We should we'll pick a play for them. No, no. But we're this season we're paying tribute to the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, which sounds weird every time I say it. Not his birthday, but his death. Yay! And so we're doing Shakespeare's Scottish play Macbeth as our last play. We're not in a theater. Well, we kind of are, but I think it'll be okay. And then we're doing a play called Lear's Daughters, which began as a devised piece by a group of women theater artists in England, and that is all women. So that's happening in February, and this is another adaptation of Hamlet. So we're trying to, check all our boxes, give everybody something to do.
Hi, Susan. This is Franca.
Hi, Franca.
The question I had was about Hamlet. I was just wondering why Hamlet is always done with Elizabethan tone to it rather than, Danish Viking tone to it. I never quite got that.
Yeah. Well, I think that Hamlet is produced in all kinds of ways, and most recently, they, I think, choose today as a way of looking at the text. For us, in this play, because it's a send-up of Hamlet and it's a send-up of the Elizabethan player, we chose to embrace the period of time that Shakespeare was writing in, if there is a Shakespeare.
Hi, this is Bob up here. In getting into a role, how's that? In getting into a role, one of the things the actor does is think about motivation. What are the motives of this character? Am I not right? How do you do that, or do you do it any differently when your characters are just characters as opposed to people? Characters as people. Anybody?
I guess my character is interesting in the fact that he knows what's going on, kind of omnipotent. He sees these Rosencrantz Guildenstern guys coming back through again. He's been in this play before. He knows what's going on. So his motivations, he drops hints throughout the plays, trying to get these guys to pick literally anything up to maybe save their lives. And they're just so dense that they don't really grab anything. But my motivations, I see myself more as a kind of a guide and overseer. And I think the player does want to help, but he also wants to point out their flaws and kind of make fun of them and titillate them.
I'm very glad you asked that question, because that is definitely the thing that I struggled with most when first reading the play and beginning to work, is that, like Susan has mentioned so many times, it is all predestined and they are just characters. But I think Tom Stoppard has done an incredible job of incorporating that fact into these characters. The fact that we are just characters and we know it slowly throughout the play is the thing that terrifies us most, or at least Guildenstern, is the fact that he has no control. That slowly dawns on him. And so in a way, that fact is the thing that gives these characters personality, is the fact that they are sort of fighting against the fact that they are characters.
Yeah, I think. Oh, okay. I think Will's correct about that, and I think our motivation is mostly derived from how we individually deal with the situation, whereas Guildenstern usually wants to attack the limits of their weird situation logically and try to figure it out from that perspective. Rosencrantz, in most situations, either does not care or is scared by it just as much as Will is, or Guildenstern is, and therefore wants to find some sort of playful distraction to help alleviate the existential horror of what they're going through, like the coin game that comes up throughout the play.
But I also think everything they're saying is absolutely true. And I think an audience is not going to relate to something that isn't real. You know, in some way, as an audience, we accept the rules of the game, but we also want to see the human being taking a journey, even in this existential journey. If they're not real to us, then we can sort of set them aside and not take the real messages of the play seriously.
Oh, this is Paul. Considering there's lots of interesting existential questions about reality, free will, and so forth, and I guess playing against the idea of roles and the fact that you are in acting and play lots of roles and so forth, in terms of each one of you personally, did they bring questions in your own mind about, those type of things?
Well, I'll answer that. And you're absolutely right. Honestly, it's been kind of terrifying working on this show, because every day I walk out of the theater, and then it's always night and nobody's around, and I'm like, oh no, like the inevitability of mortality is dawning on me every night. And there's this one really beautiful monologue that Rosencrantz has about. Do you ever think about do you ever think about being in a box? And he's of course alluding to like a coffin, and that moment for me on stage is just sitting there and really thinking about, like, oh God, what if I was just asleep in a box, or alive in a box, or dead in a box? And that's really the whole show, is just scaring ourselves for 2 hours. So you're absolutely right. It really does. He's an incredibly smart writer, and my hope is that that's sort of the experience that the people watching it have too, because it's an interesting exercise in human thought, thinking about all these things that he has to say.
Yeah, I'd agree with Will that the rumination on death and mortality is definitely the thing that really gets under my skin most about this play. And it's fascinating that it is as funny as it is, and as harrowing, like, in the questions that that brings up in your mind.
Yeah, as far as determinism is concerned, that sounds like it's an excuse for people to do whatever they want. And I'm wondering your take on that, because you people are already locked into the play, so you can't go with the determinism.
Yeah, there's a lot of these moments in this show where the characters fight against that. They try to do something ridiculous, or something that doesn't fit in at all with the narrative that they're presented with. There's a moment where Rosencrantz goes and he sees the queen, and he attempts to go over there and play peekaboo with her, because that would be a ridiculous thing to happen. And it turns out it was just one of the players in a dress. And that is sort of, there's this feeling that you're fighting against the fact that you can't do anything you want. And I think that's kind of the question that Tom Stoppard is asking, is like, is the idea that, well, there is free will because there isn't free will because there is free will, like, is that even does that question lead anywhere? And kind of in this show, it has a lot of significance, but no, it doesn't lead to an answer. And that's kind of the best part for me.
I'm Karen, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I think this is a great play at this time of year, just before Halloween. It's kind of the scary time of the year. And we are going to Ashland next week and seeing Hamlet, so this is going to be ideal after we can't wait to see your play also. And I just wanted to ask each one of you, I know in the brochure each time for a play, it tells you what year you are in school or anything, but we'd like to hear about what year you're in school and what your plans are for the future.
That's the question that always terrifies them, though. I know.
Who cares? So I'm Taylor Jacobs. I'm a senior here at Willamette, acting emphasis in the department. And I will be going to graduate school auditions in January in New York, as well as auditioning in some other places. It's really not up to me at that point. But ideally still learning in the next few years.
Again, I'm Will, and I'm a sophomore, theater major, acting emphasis. And I likewise would like to pursue theater education past my undergraduate and look into getting an MFA. Right now I'm just sort of, Willamette does a great job of giving us opportunities to work on a lot of different kind of shows, and I'm still sort of feeling out like what is the kind of theater that interests me most. So we'll see where I am when I get to where Taylor is, and like he said, it doesn't even matter anyways, so we'll see.
So I'm Max, and I am actually not a student here at Willamette. It was an open audition, so I took advantage of that. I'm currently at Chemeketa, about to start my second year, and I too would like to receive an education in theater. I'm not going to get that at Chemeketa because there's no theater program there, and I don't think I'd want to get one there anyway. But I'm going to be figuring out, again, beyond my control as well, where I'm going to go for that. But I can tell you that I certainly have felt very welcome here doing this so far, so that will be on my mind. Yeah.
See, we're recruiting all the time.
Hi. Can you hear me? This is the bad mic, I can tell.
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. My name is Solveig. Back to the concerns we were talking about just a few minutes ago. Anytime you take a part in a play, you have no choice. All plays are existential in that sense. I mean, or have that determinism, unless you decide, no, I'm not going to die after all. I'm going to walk off stage and go on a cruise. You know, you don't get to make stuff up, right? Unless you're into improv. So this is, maybe Stoddard had some of that message as well about theater. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, that's where the whole meta theater aspect that Susan was talking about comes into it, because you're right. Within the framework of the play, of any play, that is kind of the ideal way to look at the dilemma of determinism. Yeah, because everything is predetermined in dramatic works most of the time.
So so just going back to, you're going to see Hamlet, right, at OSF. So we all know how Hamlet ends, but we go to see it anyway, right? And I think that's a larger question too, is what is it about these plays that we already know the plot to, the answer to? Why do we go, you know?
Yeah, and along those similar lines, like I think about, this play asks a lot of questions about predeterminists in life, but also in theater, and I think that's really brought out in the fact that you have play within a play within a play, 3 plays going on. It's really kind of questioning, you know, like, okay, so we all know what's going to happen. We're going to laugh at this. They're dying. And I really like one of my lines in the play that I just read. It was like, truth is only that which is taken to be true. Everyone acts on assumptions. What do you assume? And I think that's a theme throughout the whole play. And as far as determinism goes, they can't really do anything about it. They just assume what they can, and they play along, I guess.
Jeanette, those are big topics to be aware of, and I think the fact that you're involved in the play must affect the way you think about everything else in your life. And so I guess I'm wondering if there are applications in your life about that. I mean, do you sometimes think, oh, I'm not in control, and so it's not going to matter? Or do you decide you're going to push a little harder so that you can make some of your decisions yourself?
That's a very interesting and frightening question. It reminds me of a particular point in the show. With the whole show, Guildenstern and Rosencrantz as well, they're sort of fighting against the inevitability in a way. You know, they're told that they're going to die. And obviously that's not what they want to happen, and Rosencrantz has this line very late in the show, if you're not happy, what's the point of surviving? And I think that's a very underrated moment, because I do have all these questions, when I get up in the morning having worked on this play for a couple of weeks, like, well, I don't have any choice. Do I have any choice? Like, what is the point? But at the end of the day, there are interesting things to think about. But if you're not living life and enjoying it and being present, then all of those questions don't really have much of a point either. And part of the joy of life is being able to think about all of those things. And I think that's not something that Tom Stoppard says outright in the show, but he does say in the beginning, like, the point of this show is to be a comedy. And it is. It's funny. And I think that choice was very intentional, because it's all of this ridiculous philosophy that sends you in circles for hours or weeks or months, but it's hilarious. It's funny and you enjoy it. And that's the beautiful part.
My name is Anne. You gave us a very long introduction of
the bad mic.
Your introduction gave us a lot of information. Do you think the students who see the play will be able to pick up on some of that, or certainly not all of it?
I mean, when you're working on a play, you have to do that digging, right, so that you're responsible about how the play is put together. But I think that once that's done, like any piece of art, it's what you get from it, right, as an audience. It's what you receive from it and what you understand about it. And if we've done our work, then maybe the vocabulary might not be there, but the ideas will be there and give you something to think about. I think it's a beautiful play. I mean, and we're responding to it. We're the interpretive artist, right? But Tom Stoppard has done a gorgeous job of writing this play that won a whole lot of awards back in the 60s.
Paul again. Even though the lines are the same, you say them differently. So, and just like going to one play, you could say that was a good production or not so good production, or that I saw something in that production that I didn't see in the last time I saw, a similar production. So, to that extent, I think can't carry that analogy too far, that we're trapped into doing exactly the same thing.
Right, and it depends on who's cast and what their energies bring to a play, and what. That's why plays are done over and over and over again, because you never really see it twice, if it's a different company of actors.
Here's Frank again. When you see Hamlet, even if you've never seen Hamlet before and you see it for the first time, there's a whole series of things that you always want to say, Hamlet, stop, don't do that. You're doing the wrong thing. It's going to take you in the wrong direction. You somehow the whole way through pick up on all the things he makes a mistake about, his assessments, his self-evaluation. Am I going to kill myself or am I going to live? So that's the beauty of that play, is that you're always questioning, and you're always surprised. At the end, he does end up getting killed. But somehow they drag it along. There's always this question. Will he get it? Will he not get it? Is she going to commit suicide? Is she not going to commit suicide? And at the end, they get killed anyway, and you're still, if it's well done, you still have that impact.
Right.
Like, geez, they could have, if they had only done, et cetera.
But it's also the beauty of the philosophy of life and the here and now. Yeah.
Susan, can you explain a little, son? Can you explain a little bit about the choosing the season? What is the process? Do you take into consideration your talent pool? This year it's thematic, but otherwise, what happens?
Well, this year's thematic, and we try to be thematic all the time, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. But the number one priority for us is our talent pool. And we don't always know because we don't, the first year students are an unknown. So we go into choosing plays and cast sizes based on somewhat of a gray area there. But our another goal that we have is to expose our students to many different genres of theater, and have experiences doing a Shakespeare play, have experience doing a musical, have experience doing a devised piece, contemporary plays, new plays, classical plays, modern plays, so that they have even if they aren't acting in it, they have exposure to many different types of theater in their 4 years. I mean, we try. That's what we attempt to do. And so, with all of that going on, at the same time, we have to sort of try to find a way to button down something that our season subscribers also want to see. So it's a dance that we do, and the basic season selection committee, for want of a better word, is the faculty with student input. So we find out what people want to do. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern is a choice from the students. So that got on the list, and I think the Scottish play is too, isn't it? I think I don't know. I think that's how that came about because John Cole, my colleague, has directed Macbeth at least 2 times. I'm possibly more. And so it wasn't top of his list to, I want to do that again, right? So, but there was enough of an interest in the department that he agreed to do it again. So.
Hi, this is Cassia. Have any of you, as young actors, already done any Shakespeare? And if so, what do you think about it? And or are you interested in going into pursuing Shakespeare as an acting career?
I did some Shakespeare before college, and then when I got to college, my first year here, the students kind of inspiringly put together a traveling production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and that traveled around the campus, and that's been done 3 times, all 3 of my freshman, sophomore, and junior years here. And it's been really a treat. And in those experiences, I've played Lysander in Midsummer Night's Dream, Malvolio in Twelfth Night, and Dogberry from Much Ado About Nothing. And all characters that are rich. And coming to college, having done a little bit of Shakespeare in high school, nobody likes Shakespeare in high school. That's truly what I believe. But sorry, Susan. We are, as acting emphases, we are required to take a Shakespeare class, and I took that last semester. And having worked on it more in college, doing more research in depth, I am one of those sappy theater people who have fallen in love with Shakespeare over and over again. Through its timelessness and the poetry of the language, I would love to study Shakespeare more in my life.
I don't have nearly as much experience as it sounds like Taylor does, but I feel very much the same way. And it's every time that I pick up a script, even to do like a monologue of his for an audition, it's just such an honor. There's so much there. You can spend like all week looking at something and still find something new. So likewise, I mean, I feel like pursuing that in the rest of my life is one of those things that I think can fulfill you for as long as you're interested in it.
Well, Taylor, I actually played Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing my senior year of high school, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. So, no, but he's correct. When you're younger and a little dumber and you don't have as much experience interfacing with it directly, Shakespeare is, impenetrable. So when you I've always thought when you kind of strip the artifice from it and just really come at it in a straightforward way. It is just very, very rewarding material, and that's why I love productions that will change the period around. I love seeing shows, and it's not like a unique thing, but seeing shows at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival that will, put Taming of the Shrew in, like a Florida beach setting. I love that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't necessarily want to devote my whole life to one particular style of theater, but I would definitely like to spend a lot more time doing Shakespeare. So
We are, these guys have to go to class, so we probably should end there. But thank you so much for having us. I hope you come and see the play.